just launched our Legal Ops Buying Bible, which is helping enterprise businesses navigate the AI marketplace in 2026. So we've got some great Haast members here. If you want to introduce yourselves. Jack?
I'm Jack. I'm the Chief of Staff at Haast.
I'm Beck. I'm Head of Customer at Haast.
My name's Clare. I'm our Commercial Director for APAC here at Haast.
So I'm going to start with Beck, asking you a question. So for legal ops professionals everywhere, lots of people are being asked and tasked this year to implement AI as a broad statement. So from your perspective, having handled lots of our enterprise clients closely, what use case should they be starting with?
So basically with a lot of our enterprise customers, where we tend to start with is their pain point. So what specific use case in a specific company causes the most pain? So we'll do a lot of discovery in terms of that aspect. So for example, we'll go, in our case, where is an area where marketing compliance hurts the most, delve deeper into that aspect and figure out why. Is it in the process? Is it in the workflow? So overall, the best point in terms of starting with a use case is figuring out which area has the deepest sort of pain for that particular company, exploring that, and also agreeing the outcomes of it from the sort of get-go as well, because that way you can all work towards that same particular set of metrics, or you work towards that same particular goals and objectives, and then you sort of work backwards from there. So we always start at the biggest pain and where our product can sort of address that, and then work backwards from the back of that.
What do you think is the biggest mistake enterprise businesses make when looking to implement AI generally? Like, what have you seen happen before, and how can other businesses learn from those mistakes?
I think one of the key things that we sort of spoke with EY on recently is this concept of sort of like the point solution versus going through and taking like a systems thinking approach. It's a lot of big words. Basically, it just means that at the end of the day, like AI, you might be implementing it to augment or automate a specific task, but the reality is that task obviously lives within a system, and making one part of that system quicker doesn't necessarily make the system quicker. Sometimes it creates bottlenecks elsewhere in that system, and you ultimately end up with a fancy tool that actually doesn't do what it means to do. And so I think when it comes to implementation, it's not about necessarily implementing a tool, it's about changing a process. And often we find that we're coming in to change a process entirely. Something that was a manual, human-driven process now is using software that just didn't exist. And so there's a lot of discovery that comes around that. There's a lot of work to really understand how that system truly operates, what the important parts are, what still requires human input, what could be automated away, where the manual work is, et cetera, et cetera. So I think just coming in initially with that systems thinking approach, taking the time to map it out end to end, understand where those bottlenecks could be, and then implementing a solution sort of across that system. That's one of the key learnings that we've had.
If a legal ops professional is looking to automate something that was done completely manually before, so it's not replacing a new software, how can they track ROI on something that was manual that's now going to be potentially automated?
What's really challenging sometimes for people in that position is that when there is a totally manual process, it's never been measured in a lot of granular detail. So measuring how far we've come can be challenging. So I think as soon as the legal ops person has turning to this or been given the direction, start measuring immediately and use the tools that you have at your disposal. An in-house corporate team might have a matter management tool, many do. They can be a really great source of information, like how many requests are coming from which department. Start gathering data right away, because that will make those how far have we come discussions a whole lot more data-based. When we start moving towards automating manual processes, we want to make sure we have a lot of structured data that we're bringing as well to those conversations, structured data around what does their compliance checklist actually contain, what is the risk appetite of the organisation. That's been in people's heads for a long time. So my recommendation is always, as soon as you start thinking about a transformation that's involving technology, start gathering your data as much as you can. Make friends with your tech team, with your CIO, anyone who's got some of that information, your head of risk. They'll be tracking other metrics through possibly GRC systems. That will really make those conversations a whole lot easier, and also can help build your business case. If you're able to say, I'm getting 1,000 queries coming through every month from this section of the business, this says it's a good candidate for more support, more tech, more automation, whatever it is, it will support building that business case because you have the data.
Do you think general co-pilots work in the legal space?
No. Sorry, that was like jumped straight in. I think in the legal space, you want a consistent set of answers that is applies that risk-sensitive sort of tolerance from the get-go. You want something that's correct and you can trust. So I think that's one of the most important things. Like you can trust sort of the output that it's correct and vetted. So on the back of that, if you have a general sort of tool, you will receive an answer that is almost nowhere near as tailored as an actual dedicated legal tech tool. And I think that's really, really important because sometimes you have general tools where the responses seem broadly sort of correct. Like I don't think it's anywhere near as dedicated or as detailed as you need it to be for an actual legal tech tool and the answers that you need. You want something to be sourced, you want to trust it. I know I iterated on that a few times, but I don't think a general tool sort of addresses that at all.
So again, for legal ops professionals going through an RFP, vetting potential vendors, what kind of questions should they be asking in that vendor selection process? What's important to find out?
Maybe just in terms of AI tools specifically, and the process there, I think one thing that tends to be overlooked a bit is sort of the concept of customization, but not in, I suppose, the classical sense where it's about really customizing the tool to the business and building integrations, et cetera, those are important. But I think it's how well that tool can customize the AI sort of analysis, the way it thinks, approaches things to your business, and specifically, obviously, in the legal space, how well that tool can be customized to your specific risk tolerance, which is obviously different between a Telstra and Optus, for example. And if there isn't necessarily a strong way to be able to tune, so to speak, the tool to your business, it's likely that it's going to possibly help, but not actually truly solve the problem. So just being critical of the how well those tools can kind of handle that sort of nuance that you might have within one sort of organization to the next.
Lots of people make the mistake in believing just the subscription cost is what you need to consider, or whatever it might be, just the training cost, just the implementation cost. But for legal ops professionals that are looking to implement a new solution, what costs, be it fiscal or resource, do they actually need to consider and plan for?
I think it's a really interesting question, especially in the corporate space where when we're talking about legal spend, almost 99.9% of that will be external counsel spend. And so the budget, when you're looking at a balance sheet from a CFO's point of view, so legal's funding might be disproportionately large because a lot of it's external counsel spend. So sometimes we'll have to have a conversation around, okay, well, if we need to fund a project, where is that funding going to come from? Is it something that we need to reduce the outside counsel spend to allow this? Is that going to be okay? Because potentially no, that legal counsel, that external spend is there for a reason often. So let's make sure that we're not sort of undercutting, like robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. So we also want to make sure if we're changing a business process, that's not legal's entire responsibility. Let's make sure that the business is bought in with this, and is the business going to fund this transformation? Usually that means with the licensing, but then with the people and the capacity as well. Because for organisations who don't have a certified, legal ops team, which is many in Australia still, someone else is doing this as a hobby on the side, kind of. This is their legal ops for the corps as their side hustle when they really are a senior solicitor or someone potentially in operations, but usually not. So they need a lot of help, and and they don't have a full-time team to support them. So how do we, as tech people, come in and be able to support that person, build their village internally, and get that support so they can have the funding and have the capacity allowed for them as well.
Typically, enterprise businesses, when they're implementing an AI tool, might look initially just to roll out a POC or a pilot. How can they ensure that that pilot is a success? What do you need to factor in from the beginning? Who needs to be involved? Yeah.
Essentially, you want to have clear goals at the end of your pilot or your POC. So you want to achieve something, and that would be, I want to be comfortable with the product so I can bring it to BAU. Or it could be, I'm already going to be using it in BAU towards the end of the pilot. And from there, you work backwards. So I think I think the main aspect in terms of those goals is you want to have that clearly set. You want to bring the right parties in from the get-go. So you would have numerous stakeholders across the entire company, not just on the legal side, but cross-functionally. You have your IT team doing the cybersec stuff, any integrations that's sort of needed, building into the workflow. So now you have operational people included, where it affects, let's say, sales or marketing, or the other side, if you need people who are not the legal team to use the product, bring them in early on, and agreeing the goals from the get-go, I think is really, really important.
Perfect. Well, just before we wrap up, I've got one final quick fire question for all of you. So Claire, you can kick us off. But what do you think enterprise businesses can do to lead the charge and stay competitive in 2026?
Oh, the one thing?
Well, true.
Yeah, I feel like 2026, the last 5 years have been such an interesting time for tech, and while it's not slowing down at all, I think people's comfort level has changed. So I feel like for 2026, everyone's been watching, waiting, testing, investigating. I feel like this is the year to put something big in practice, because everybody else out there kind of will be, I think, or already is. And so this is definitely a year for adoption, and adoption in earnest. The testing, you should be done with that by now. I think when it comes to Gen AI, at least, have a view, have some structure. But I think the year for adopting and go hard.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in a very similar vein, I think it's almost like previously there was sort of this consideration of winning and losing on the adoption of AI or using AI to some degree. But now I think it's winning and losing based on the quality and effectiveness of your implementation, which is a lot less sexy, but I think it's the reality. And so I do think 2026 is going to be about those businesses that can actually get those implementations off, really focus on giving them the right time of day, resources, etc. Because once this technology is properly embedded in the organization, you are going to be more competitive. But everyone is implementing it, so to speak, but not everyone's going to successfully implement it, because it's a really difficult thing. It always has been, like these sorts of implementations, and it requires resources, it requires time, etc., etc. So for those that really focus in on it in 2026, I think that's going to be a real differentiator.
I think so too. Not to echo exactly what everyone else has said already, but I think implementation is really, really important. And also I think, Claire, you touched on this, having a view in terms of you don't want to just be testing 100 sort of products. You want to focus on a very, very small handful that addresses your key problem and implement that and focus on that. So I think that's the main aspects, because you never get the true value if you're just testing 100 products, or if you're just going off what another company is using or a lot of other companies are using. You want to have it tailored to your use case and your particular problems. So on the back of that, having a view of what you want and implementing it truly is super important. And that's my 2 cents, while echoing the both of you. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your insights today, team, and don't forget to read Haast's Legal Ops Bible.